constant speaking tour. Places I've been to China and Romania and all over the Middle East and Europe and Latin America and the United States, and everywhere I go, I find that people like you are waking up to the knowledge that we're living on a very fragile space station without shuttles. We can't get off. My 8-year-old grandson won't be able to get off. Maybe a few people will go to Mars or the moon, but most of us won't get off. We don't want to get off. We must create a life economy. And really, all that takes is a change of our perceived reality, of our imagined reality. People often think, well, we've got to go through a huge trauma to have things change. I don't believe that. I think that's the other possibility. But I know we can turn this around. We have the smarts to do it, don't you think? Can we do that? You can do it. You know, as I look out at you, I see people here who, some of you have influence in government, in corporations. Some of you have influence in investor organizations and funds, and you have investments of your own. All of you shop. All of you consume. All of you depend on corporations, and many of you are part of corporations. We all know that there's nothing bad or good about corporations. They're just an imagined reality. Corporations is an imagined reality. It's what we decide to make them. And let's face it, in the past, and perhaps in the present, we've chosen to say, hey, I want inexpensive but good quality tennis shoes. And if they happen to be made by slaves in Indonesia, I'll just be away. I want cheap petroleum for my car, and if that means destroying the Amazon rainforest, I'll just look the other way. Let's change that. You know, we need to come up with something better. So what I think is important at this critical moment in human history is to understand two objective realities. One is that corporations are the prime movers behind politics and economics, in fact, behind all of human societies, all over the planet today. China, Russia, and
what the fuck?
Corporations that will succeed in the future. The future's already in us. Are those that buy into this new consciousness, this new awareness, this new mindset, that we must create a life economy, one that cleans up pollution, and creates regenerative and sustainable technologies, and that alleviates the causes of desperation and terrorism. That's another thing that the life economy can do. When I was in business school, the same professor in economic history who taught me about the fact that corporations have to prove that they serve public interest also warned us that corporations are becoming excessive in the pursuit of profit. And I gave a quote that I would have had from him. He said, they'll take this to the extreme, but then there'll be a reckoning, a rebalancing, a recognition that corporations are here to serve the public. That time has come. It's essential that we, you and I, and people around the world, redefine the goals of corporations. Change that imagined reality. To know that corporations are here not simply to maximize profits. Their new goals should be, one, to make a decent return for investors, yes. We need investors. We need to come up with new technologies that will recycle, that will not force us to dig up all of our resources and destroy the atmosphere and the air in the process. So we need to give a decent rate of return for investors. But then what? The second objective is to serve us, you and me, the public, the world, future generations, my 8-year-old grandson, not the 62 people and their friends who already are so wealthy. And in accomplishing these two goals, corporations will understand that they are serving themselves and ensuring their own success. So I'd like to just jot down a few thoughts here. Imagine for a moment what this new reality might look like. Imagine how your tax dollars going to pay corporations to, instead of building ever more powerful military devices that try to obliterate life as we know it, to instead develop processes for inventing the components of plastic floating in our oceans, to clean up and utilize the oil spills that saturate large swaths of the Amazon and other places, and to invent new and as yet unimagined technologies for energy, transportation, communications, marketing, the growing of foods, and other activities. Technologies that do not require destroying resources. You can't eat all of the food supply. You know, as a student of the American
fucking car flipped over, bro. Are you fucking serious?
Many ancestors who fought in Thomas Paine is a just eminent senator of his. And I used to think, my God, I wish I'd been born in the 1700s so I could have fought in that revolution. But this is so much bigger. This is such a much more important revolution. It's global. It's totally essential. And it's an awful lot more comfortable. The beds are better. The toilets are better. The food's better, I think. The weapons are a lot better too, unfortunately, yes. Yes, you know, I recently read an article where somebody, I can't remember who it was, pointed out that we still have the emotional makeup of Neanderthals. You know, we get angry very easily as human beings. And we have the political system of the ancient Greeks. We have the business system of feudal, medieval times, the feudal times, you know, the hierarchy. And we have the technology of gods. We can destroy ourselves and everything on this planet that we know. That's a pretty scary thought. And so what it takes is this change of mindset, this altered consciousness that we need to rise out of that Neanderthal mentality, amongst other things, and create these new systems for doing that. You know, again, I'm going to bring this to a close pretty soon and open it to questions and discussions, but, you know, I just want to say that, again, as a student of the American Revolution, I used to think, and I still think, how fortunate we are that Tom Paine did not try to lead armies. And George Washington did not try to write pamphlets. Washington had a passion and skills for leading men, and Paine had a passion and skills for writing pamphlets. Martha Washington had a passion and skills for organizing women to make clothes for the men at the forefront. They all took different paths. They all headed toward the same destination, getting out from under the British yoke. Just like you Irish. You got there too, eventually. You know, I think it's fair to say, you have the power. I know that the people in this room actually represent a lot of power here in Washington. But people all over the world, every one of us has tremendous power. And it's just important to recognize that. You have passions. I don't know what each of your passions are, but I know you've got them. So follow that passion. We can each take different paths, just like Washington and Paine and Martha Washington. Very different paths headed for the same destination. If we all take our individual paths, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a carpenter, a parent, whatever you are, use that passion to move us toward a life economy, to move us toward a future that my grandson, 8 years old, Grant, will want to inherit. And that means it's got to be a future that every child on this planet wants to inherit. Used to be we only had to worry about the United States for our children. Now we know that my 8-year-old grandson will not have a good future unless every child growing up in Ethiopia and Bolivia and every place else in the world passions. Again, growing up in New Hampshire, I had no idea that African Americans in parts of my country had to ride on the back of a bus until Rosa Parks showed me. How many of you know who Rosa Parks was? How many of you have heard of Rosa Parks? Who was Rosa Parks? A woman who walked to the front of a bus. She did a lot of other things, but that was the most significant thing. You could do that. And I had no idea growing up in New Hampshire that the DDT my dad and I sprayed on the swamp behind our house to kill mosquitoes was also killing fish and birds until Rachel Carson wrote Silent Spring and started a whole worldwide environmental movement. How many of you have ever heard of Rachel Carson? Who was Rachel Carson? A woman who sat down at a desk, a tiny desk, in a little house in Pennsylvania, took out a piece of scrap paper and a pencil and started writing, having no idea if her book would ever be published, much less that it would create an environmental movement around the world. You can do that. And how many of you have ever heard of Jack Woodbury or Dick Davis or Mrs. Schneier? Oh my God, Washington, D.C., I thought you were educated here. Well, Jack and Richard were my high school English and history teachers. And Mrs. Schneier was my third grade teacher. Without them, I wouldn't be here. Jack and Richard taught me the power of writing in history and changing history. And it is more powerful than a bullet, ultimately. That's why I write, because of Jack and Richard, teachers. And Mrs. Schneier, my third grade teacher, well, there was a bully in our third grade class. He was 15 years old in third grade. He didn't like me. And he used to beat me up in the playground. And I'd go running to Mrs. Schneier, and she didn't know what to do because up there in New Hampshire in those years, I think still was a law that you have to stay in school till you're 16, so they could kick him out for a week, but they had to let him back in, and then he'd be meaner than ever. So one time I go running up to her, whimpering and crying, and she says, well, Johnny, I think you're just going to have to take care of this yourself. And I said, but he's big. And she said, well, here's my advice. Next time he pushes you around, you just kick him in the shins and run like hell. I don't think she used the H word. I did. And a funny thing happened. He whimpered, and then he became my friend, my ally, my protector. And I learned this incredible lesson about how to deal with bullies. You gotta stand up to them, and then they join you. And I think if we look at this system, if we look at the way corporations are just working on maximizing profits, we'll see that that's a bullying system, and we gotta stand up to it. It's time to stand up to these things. So, every one of you is a Mrs. Schneier or Richard Davis or Jack Woodbury or Rosa Parks. Every one of you has incredible passion. You got talents. You got power. And now it's time to get out there for all of us to use this power to take part in this revolution, a consciousness revolution, an awakening. Are you ready to do this? Are you ready? Come on, Washington. Are you guys ready? Are you ready? I want to hear a big yes. I'm going to enlist you. All right. Thank you. I'm ready too. I'm ready to join you. And I want to leave you with a quote. I also want to mention that please take a look at my website, seanperkins.org. I do trips every year to the shamans of Colombia and Ecuador and Guatemala, and I'd love to have some of you join me. It's all on my website, seanperkins.org. Also, put your email in a little box there, and you'll get my newsletter once a month. It's kind of fun. I just wrote a pretty provocative one that just came out. I think you'd enjoy that. So, johnperkins.org. The quote I'd like to leave you with is 200 years old, a little more than that, but I think it's totally relevant to these times that we're talking about. It was written as the American Revolution was getting underway by Tom Paine. It's one of these things that triggered people to change their perceived reality. December 1776. Paine writes, "These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country. But he or she who stands by it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman." A generous parent should say, if there must be trouble, let it be in my day, that my child may have peace. If there must be trouble, let it be in our day, that our children may have peace. Paine goes on to say, I love the man or woman who can smile in trouble, who can gather strength from distress, and grow brave by reflection. By perseverance and fortitude, we have the prospect of a glorious future. I think that's why we're all here tonight. I think that's why you're born at this time, this incredibly important time in human history. And why you're here tonight, so that when my 8-year-old grandson is my age, many, many years out there, he'll look back and he'll say, thank God those people all came together in early March at the World Affairs Council, and every one of them committed to following his or her passions, and using his or her skills to create a world that I and all my brothers and sisters around the planet would want to inherit. Thank God all of us came together to say that we have the perseverance and fortitude to find a glorious future. I look forward to doing that with you. Thank you so much. Thank
you. Hey, Mr. P, I thought that was a great talk you gave. I'm Abigail Woodward. I'm just a citizen. The things that I think would be really helpful would be two things. One would be if we had more women on corporate boards. And I go to think tank meetings at the Brookings and all over that talk about the difference that having women on corporate boards makes. And the other thing is, I think we need to be really aware of what's going on with intellectual property rights. And you're having worked with the shaman, you should know, all this stuff that he knew is now being commodified and stripped from the culture. So those are the two things I would like to hear you comment on.
Thank you. I'm so glad you brought up the women's issue, and it's something I usually talk about. Yes, if we create this new life economy and we stay with the male hierarchical system that we have, we'll just get back to the problem all over again. I'm convinced that women must take more power, and we men need to open the doors wider to that, but also you women just really need to get out there and take it. And we men also need to open ourselves more to our own feminine sides. I mean, we've all got that. As you women need to perhaps take a little bit more of the masculine to get up and put yourselves in those positions. But absolutely, we must move in that direction. And this ties in a way with the other question about the indigenous people and property rights. And yeah, I mean, that
ship then bulk travel. You started to shake your head, huh?
Yeah, I like it. But
It's better, right?
it's
No.
smoother and it's easier.
Yes.
Yeah.
So much better.
Yeah.
Imagine going to a barbershop now.
Raw
God took care of a lot of it.
God took care of it.
Yeah.
God cursed you. Too much scalp.
I want it back.
Do you?
I really want to do a mohawk correctly,
Oh.
and I want it for a little bit. Remember how much fun I'd have with my hair?
Well, you could do stuff with your hair to get it back. That's not as dangerous as No. There's ways. There's a guy named Derek. He's got a website called More Plates, More Dates, and he talks a lot about hormone optimization, all kinds of stuff, but also recovering hair loss. And there's a bunch of different things you can do. There's topical shampoos that remove DHT from the scalp that help bring your hair back.
But it'll get back.
I don't know, man. You're pretty good.
There's this Amazonian treatment for it.
Amazon.
Yeah, Ungurawa. And then I found this lady who's like, there's a lot of fake shit on the market there. Can I curse on this? And I'm so sorry. I won't do it again.
That's hilarious.
And so she could smell it and tell that's real. Like, oh no way, that's got corn oil. And I was like, to this botanist guy, I was like, will it work? And he was like, yes. And then he looks up and goes, unless you're too far gone, then it will not work. But he goes, none of those people in the Amazon have hair loss.
Really?
And that's why. Yeah, all this fucking, we talked about all this.
Mostly it's genetic, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly it's genetic. If a lot of people in the Amazon don't have it, I doubt it's because they're all rubbing leaves on their head.
I get what you're saying.
Because it's not a common thing amongst Native Americans. They're pure blood, rather.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, people that are pure Native American, it's not.
Everyone talks how hard it is to be Native American. But the full locks of hair.
Well, you do have to realize that 95% of them died from the plague.
Yeah, and then there's a litter also, which they never liked.
Litter?
You know.
Oh, the Indian that cried?
Yeah. That was the last 5%. Was like, come on, guys, because 5% was left chucking shit in my yard.
Yeah, I was listening to this thing where these settlers post smallpox were arriving in towns, and there would be no one in the town. It would be ghosts, and they thought the people had abandoned the town. They hadn't figured it out yet, but it would literally the entire town was wiped out
from the plague.
From the plague, yeah.
Damn.
That was a really common thing. They think that's what happened to South America. They think that's what happened to the Amazon. They think the lost city of Z, the lost city of Zed, however you want to say it. They think that was a massive civilization that existed in the Amazon, and then the European settlers came down, and just like they did with the Mayans, just like they did with the Native Americans, just like they brought horrible fucking diseases, and everybody died.
Wow.
That's the number one theory. Because people are thinking about what's going on right now, right? See how even a disease that doesn't kill, a high percentage of people can spread throughout this entire country, and hundreds of, I don't know how many people have been affected by COVID now. It's got to be in the millions, right? Got it and recovered. Now imagine if that was smallpox.
Then they're all dead.
They're all dead.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, most of them are dead. It's a high
especially
percentage.
Back then.
And the people that survive, you're horribly scarred forever. You have these horrible pock marks all over your face.
And they had no antibodies for that shit,
Nope.
right?
Nope.
For the whatever the settlers came with.
Even the Europeans had a rough time with that. But for the Native Americans, everything the Europeans brought over, all their diseases,
was all new.
All of it was new. No one had any immunity to it, and so these people the Europeans who were surviving with these diseases, came in and infected untold numbers of people. They don't even know how many people died from the plague in the Native American populations. They just think the estimate is somewhere in the neighborhood of 90+% of all the people are dead.
How many Indians were there?
That's what they think. They think there was millions. But when by the time the 1800s came around and they started trying to round them up and put them in reservations and all that horrible shit, it was way less.
But in 1550, in 1492, whatever, how many? Do they have any estimate of how many there were?
They think there were millions. They think there were millions.
100?
It's a good question. It's hard to say, right? Because they have one of the things that happens is you have the first wave of people that come in 14 whatever.
East
right?
Coast.
Yeah, they land, and then who knows how many fucking people they infect. And then
Right
another,
away, and they
right.
spread it.
So if another wave comes back in 50 years, how many people are left? How many people died from the initial infection?
Yeah.
But all these books about Native Americans talk about just a wave through people. 60 million, what is that?
60 million in 1492. Damn, that's a fright. Look at that TV.
By combining all published estimates from populations throughout the Americas, we find a probable indigenous population of 60 million in 1492.
Europe's population at the time was 70 to 88 million.
See, scroll down there.
So
What
that's
killed 90% of the Native American population between 1500 and 1600? Smallpox. When Europeans arrived, carrying germs which thrived in dense semi-urban populations, indigenous people of the Americans were effectively doomed. That is amazing. 90%. I mean, that's a scary fucking number, man.
Is that a flat screen? It's
Saying, man.
every once in a while you see like the big glasses still out there. You see it and you realize that's a real mismatch. For sure. We're back in the hole. We're like, who would still have it?
My grandpa had it.
It was like part of the furniture. Jeez, yeah.
So classy.
And then underneath the door, the VHS tape one.
There's no VHS station.
Yeah.
A lot of times this movie died.
That's right. That's right. You can't throw away the cabinet.
This beautiful piece of furniture. It's like neat design. Cabinet furniture. Slide doors into it.
Oh yeah, the slides up there. Get a slider. This dude was art stuff in the house. I wasn't there or something.
Yeah, but it's art. Okay, I see what you did. Appreciate the just trying to throw it out. Who wants that in their house?
Yeah, but you're like, got no swords in it. This art sucks.
Look at this cute little cabinet. It's kind of cool, but so are old computers, right? You have like a Apple II.
Remember that the colorful apples when they changed like
iMacs.
See the inside too. That was it.
Damn. They could bring a new version of that back, but now when is that pad?
Yeah.
Now.
They just did that going for
Oh really?
Yeah, they got gold, but not crazy.
Yeah, that's right. What do they look like?
It's just like the flat screen on the color back.
This is what it looks like. They're so thin. Yeah, it's really amazing. How can you take it out?
I was breaking it the last one. What the condom? Because this doesn't feel worse.
Look at that. Oh, they're sweet.
That's
That's so thin. Like an iPad. That's how thin they are. That's amazing. And that's like all you need, right?
Oh! You definitely can't play this in sound because they call it the rights to this. It's a short music to play behind it, right?
I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
Fucking rock the Beatles and all. It's pretty beautiful though. This is fucking clutch.
How many cost me that?
Leave it alone, bro.
Yeah, that's that, right?
11.5 millimeters thin. Holy shit. That's tiny.
Is that real size? That sounds awesome to you guys. You know what it is.
I just found out how much that programs. From 90.7.
Look at the ground.
That's a kilograms and Celsius. On the wall, yeah. Oh, we've changed the Fahrenheit thing. Celsius.
It's the only way to learn.
So confused. Yeah, you have to leave it. Celsius.
Yeah, you have to do it slowly start.
Yeah, because you look at 24 Celsius, you're like, that ain't shit. Meanwhile, you're gonna die.
Well, 24 Celsius is not bad.
Isn't it like 100 degrees?
No, that's a,
It's at 34 Celsius.
yeah, 34, 35 is
I'm thinking
about
34. I was in Vegas last weekend, and it was 117 degrees. 117, dude. It was so hot. We got off the plane. It was like, holy shit. It was like a hair dryer just blowing in your face.
It's dry, but it's like, it beats down on you sometimes there. There in Phoenix, you put you
Exactly. There in Phoenix.
I was walking the strip in Vegas a long time ago, and like Chuck Taylor's on the cement. So walking like 30, 40 minutes, started to melt. It started to feel like I stepped in gum on both shoes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, too hot.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's not made for that.
You can melt your sneakers? It can get that hot? What temperature do sneakers melt at?
We named this podcast. Let's look it up with Joe Rogan.
Yeah, you would need work shoes. You would need like fucking heavy duty work boots.
Let's look it up with Joe Rogan.
Yeah, exactly.
Some fucking really
You couldn't have steel toe because they'll burn your toes.
Yeah, I got some dress shoes.
Yeah.
From David August that are they have leather on the bottom of them. I never owned a pair of shoes that have leather soles.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you have to scuff them up.
So they get some.
Otherwise, they're real slippery. That's why I would never wear them. I'm like, these things, you're putting yourself at a significant handicap just walking around.
Shower shoes.
Here's
Oh shit!
Still hot in Texas a couple years ago.
Wow.
Look at that is really melting. Also, the glue was melting.
Maybe, yeah.
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 God damn, but that's only 160.
They take 250 enough rubber, so.
Huh. So how the fuck? Well, I guess it's just.
Well, the cement tastes more.
Yeah,
tastes
so I was looking at
than
how
the
hot it
heat.
gets.
Yeah.
I'm glad you found that because when I said it was melting, and then we were like, "How hot does that be?" I'm like, "Could this be a false memory?"
No, shit.
You're dead wrong.
There was a thought at one point in time, like there was a suggestion to paint all the roads white to try to eliminate some of the heat that comes in cities, which really makes sense. Like
Do it.
you look at all the streets; they're all black. Black is the worst in terms of reflecting the sun. It makes it very hot. They were going to paint everything white.
What happened?
I don't know. I think they probably realized that costs a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
No,
That's a
yeah.
good idea. Who's gonna do that?
Yeah. So you're in. What did you go back to New York? You're in New York.
Back to New York.
Yeah.
Got a new place.
You're in South America for how many months?
6 meses. 6 months.
How do you say that?
Ses
Meses?
meses.
It's
Six.
meses is a month?
Yeah. It's plural.
How good are you at speaking Spanish?
It got a lot better for sure.
Because you can have conversations with people?
Yeah. No, I mean, okay. So if you put me in like legal situation, I'm like, oh, I don't come across these words much. Or
Right.
like the dentist. I'm like, this is all.
What
these
if
are all
you
new.
say, how do I buy marijuana?
KS. Where's my? It's already dropped a little bit.
Really?
Purchase. Fuck, I forgot that word.
You live with a
Mota,
family.
Mota.
Mota.
Yeah.
Mota marijuana?
No, Mota is marijuana.
Oh, Mota.
Yeah.
Isn't funny?
Yeah.
Marijuana is a Mexican word.
You'd be like Tienes Mota. Do
Tienes Mota.
you have Mota?
Why is it Mota?
I don't know. Instead of marijuana?
Well, marijuana is.
I think they call it marijuana though.
That word
There.
comes from a Mexican word for wild tobacco. It's a slang for wild tobacco. That's why they used it during the scare days.
Yeah.
Like during the, like Harry Anslinger.
The wild, like black guys are gonna fuck your wives
Exactly.
and smoke weed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what they did to try to scare people. They called it marijuana because if they called it cannabis, people knew that was used for hemp. And that was already used as a textile and it was already a commodity.
Yeah.
And so to ban it, they had to make sure that they made it something exotic. So they called it marijuana. And those people freaked out. Yeah. It's
You
funny
could-
that they would use that term in Mexico.
Really? Just
I don't think you're saying no.
you could find it there, but it was difficult. I don't know if it was COVID stuff. Because like the nightclubs weren't open, and that's people were like go to the nightclubs, but that's where I get it. They're not really open right now.
Interesting.
Like a week and a half, 2 weeks, we might not get it. Kept looking at people that were smoking it. Well, so it's like, I find someone too, but it's so weird. Like you were smoking with me, and it's like, can I buy some weed? You'd be like, no. Even if it's legal, like, this is fine.
No, yeah. You have to worry about where going to
Oh my.
You're getting wrapped up with the wrong humans.
Yeah, that's really,
You weren't in the bad spot.
that's just why I keep the rest was all pretty cool. But
This is
like,
where?
Wyethfield, that's where the gangs are.
Oh.
The city.
This is an antidote?
But like, then when we found some, we're like, do you have? He was like, yeah, I can get some tomorrow. I'm like, oh, we go to a headshot. So we bring it back tomorrow. So we did. And he was like, how much do you want? And we're like, how much? Well, yeah. So I go, how much? And he goes, it's like $1 a gram. So like, you get 30 grams, $30. I'm like, oh, I don't want like an ounce, maybe just like quarter ounce. My partner was like, I'm gonna take that. It's $30. Even if it's terrible. And it's so strong. So strong.
Like California weed.
No, different. No, okay. Not as strong, more psychedelic. I was sitting smoking in the Amazon and I started seeing lines. Like lines in the horizon. Like, you know when you're like tripping a little? It was like that. It wasn't that it would obliterate me the way like heavy like Blue Dream would do. But like Yeah, you get these psychedelic waves. Yeah, for sure.
With what?
I don't know. People said they put acid on it, but I don't think you could like smoke acid.
Let's find out.
So, Jamie,
Smoke acid?
next. Looking it up.
I'm thinking about the lines.
Yeah, it was weird. And we were like, oh, maybe it's just not smoke so much. And then both of us were like, no, we're potheads. So there's no like, we know what this is.
Something different.
Yeah. It was wild. And then we went back and we're like, do you have anything not so strong? And he goes, I can get like some fluffier flour. And it was $30 for 1 gram. And it wasn't as strong. I love the systems part.
It wasn't as strong, but it's more pure. So it gives you some shit that's.
I don't know. It was all mushed down, like, you know, it's wet, like just smush. It had to have something. It had to. We thought about it over and over
You've
again.
done acid many times. You know what acid
Yeah.
feels like. Did it feel like acid?
It felt a little bit like that.
Doesn't all of us feel a little bit like acid? At times?
Do you think so? How many times did that? Yeah, maybe we can start seeing stuff in the walls.
Edibles get pretty psychedelic at high doses. You close your eyes.
They just bury it.
Yeah, but when you close your eyes,
Yeah.
you see wild
You
shit.
start seeing stuff.
Yeah, I remember I was on a plane once and I saw these neon cartoons fucking. It was just all these neon cartoons just fucking and making more neon cartoons. They were just constantly make, but they were like neon, like really bright. And I remember like,
Humanoid?
yeah, sort of humanoid, but more, kind of some of them were like Goofy or Donald Duck ish, you know, just like cartoonish. But they were all trying to fuck.
Wow.
And they were all like made out of neon. They were almost like, no, well, I was awake, yeah, but I had my eyes completely closed. I was obliterated.
Yeah.
Obliterated.
So
And
what it thought?
I was just closing my eyes and I was just watching these things happen. They were just all almost like fractal, like they were getting involved in making new cartoons and fucking each other. Yeah, it was wild.
I've never had that
It was
That's
so
cool.
blasted. It was so cool. That was one of the. I think that was one of the trips with Joey, where he would give you those Chiba chews, and you didn't know what you're doing.
You don't know what you're doing.
Until halfway in.
See him smiling and you're like,
I can't get out of this.
yeah. Oh, you can't get out of it.
Yeah. And his ability to absorb them is insane. It's just so stunning how much he could put in his body and tolerate.
He's like, I saw him the other day, and he's like, after I don't eat any edibles, I get high. I'm like, I forgot the number he gave me, like 100 milligrams. I'm like, that's massive still.
Yeah.
That's way more than anyone.
100 milligrams is a good dose.
People take
Yeah.
5, people take 30, and people, that's like
Yeah.
a pro. You're on you're on dad's level.
My favorite thing to do with air travel is 200 milligram dose.
Damn.
Because it's just, if you know you got to be in a
If your
plane for
tolerance is
6
there.
hours,
Yeah.
if you know you got to be in a plane for 6 hours, you know you can just curl up in that chair and just get obliterated for 5 hours.
The old breast strip days would get me 25, would get me that for 6 hours.
Those were so inconsistent.
Yeah, they were. Sometimes they reach nothing.
And
you're
sometimes
like,
you'd be fucked.
yeah,
You never knew.
yeah.
You never knew.
Sounds like you cannot.
Interesting.
What can you lace weed with?
Fentanyl, I've heard of a lot.
Hell yeah, I'm a huge fentanyl fan now then.
PCP.
Oh, maybe that.
Like,
Do you know that PCP is essentially the same thing as ketamine?
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't know that.
interesting. I wouldn't know that. Yeah.
Dr. Carl Hart explained that to me. Wild, right?
Yeah.
Would never think. Well, like, PCP is the crazy drug. You run through walls and fight
Yeah,
the
right?
cops.
Yeah, jump out of a building, get right back up.
Yeah, you don't give a fuck. Run through a glass window.
Well, they mislabel a lot of drugs sometimes where they're like, this guy was on like, they had marijuana system. Like, no. It was bath salt. So they call it something, and you're like, you find out later what it
Yeah.
actually is because they're too much of a nerd to actually know there's a new drug in the market.
The bath salt days were hilarious.
Yeah.
Remember those
Eating
days?
face?
Yeah.
The eating face guy.
That guy ate some dude's face.
And the
Homeless
cop was
guy.
like, lost it. He
Yeah.
was like, I don't know what to do. Like, stop eating his fucking face. And he just shot the guy.
Right.
He was like, stop eating his face immediately.
Bro, have you ever talked to cops about some of the things they've seen?
Like dark stuff. I should now from now on.
I had a conversation recently with a cop who was telling me some horrible shit with a guy, and he caught a guy as he murdered his wife in front of their kids.
Oh,
He was there as he murdered her,
Like-
on top of her strangling her.
wow.
Yeah. They got there, she was already dead, they tried to revive her. The kids were screaming at the guy. He got out of jail. He was telling everybody.
Got out of jail?
Telling everybody when he gets out of jail, he's gonna kill her. So he got out of jail.
He killed her.
And they killed her. But they got there right as he was on top of her. He'd been choking her for who knows how many minutes, and the kids had been screaming for who knows how long.
What do they shoot him? They push him off?
I don't know. I didn't ask.
There's that moment too where you bust in and you have to see it and analyze the situation and then like run and I mean it's like
I guess they'd known of the guy and they knew the situation, you know, people in the neighborhood.
damn.
Yeah. That's why when people say defund the police and use like social workers to deal with domestic violence cases, I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind. You're out of your fucking mind. First of all, they're the most dangerous cases for cops.
Yeah.
And they would just be as dangerous for a social worker, but they wouldn't be equipped to handle that in terms of.
Yeah, the ones in Oz were always getting fucked up.
Oh yeah.
So they're like, I'm not gonna cook this. You remember in the movies when they always like every cop is like, I'm not seeing a shrink, and you're like, now you're like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Are you
right?
crazy after seeing a man murder his wife in front of his kids? Like, for sure, see a shrink.
Yeah, that was just one of many things this guy told me.
Ugh.
He's seen a lot of horrible shit. He's in a lot of horrible shit, and you know those guys. Every time they go on a call, they can run into that. And look, I'm not defending bad cops ever. You know, bad cops are like bad everything else. They're just bad people. There's people that suck. They suck at everything. They suck at being a waiter. They suck at being a garbage man. They suck. But when you suck at being a cop, and you're a piece of shit who turns out to be a cop, it's horrible for everybody. But I think
those are the guys.
Yeah, those are the problems.
But those are the ones also you should befriend. Because they can bend the rules for you. Like, you know, I mean, it's dangerous when they're not on your side, so get them on your side.
There's guys that just like the power.
Everyone does.
Yeah.
You give someone a gun? Yeah, I mean,
Right.
immediately you gotta be like,
Right.
people are scared of me now.
Not just that, but you always worry that someone's gonna shoot you. You gotta be ready. You know, it's another thing I've been watching a lot lately is cops pulling people over and then getting shot.
Damn. That's your algorithm.
There's a lot of those videos. There's a lot of those videos you can watch where cops are pulling people over and they say license and they're getting shot at before they even have a chance. They're getting
The guy was just ready for him to come up.
Guy in the back seat shooting out the
Damn.
window, tinted windows. That's why every time they go up to a car that has tinted windows, they're freaking the fuck out.
Right.
Especially if there's tinted back windows, right? They're rolling up to the front, the back's all tinted, they don't know who's in there. Fuck. There's this video that I was watching, this cop was getting shot at through the back seat.
They gotta have it's that shit you could see through into the
Infrared or something?
infrared, yeah.
X-ray?
That stuff they used in Predator.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. See who's there, see what they carry. It's probably illegal, but
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the fuck the solution to that is. Because, like, you're gonna pull over.
you gotta put people over
criminals.
for driving though.
Yeah.
Too fast. You gotta be like, hey, stop.
Right.
I have to give you some
Or,
repercussions.
you know, what if you pull over someone and you know, because you read their plate, and maybe they're driving erratically, and the guy reads their plate and goes, oh, this is a wanted felon. So now you gotta hit the lights, and maybe it's just you and your partner, and then, you know, you got a car with maybe 4 criminals in it who have guns. Who the fuck knows?
Why would you do it?
It's a
Why would
crazy
that even
job.
be a job?
It's a crazy job. But someone's got to do it, right? Because you see what's going on right now in New York City, where they've defunded the police, and they've got shootings all over the place, and their homicide rate is way up.
Not all over the place.
Well, not in the East Village, right?
No, maybe it's up there. It ain't around me. It's a utopia where I live.
Is it?
Oh, that's great.
Utopia?
It's. I mean, you have some people pissing in the streets, but like,
Bums, maybe?
and adults.
Why are they
Drinking,
pissing in the
drinking,
street?
dude. You can drink on the street still.
Oh, because it's changed.
Daytime.
They changed the law.
2 p.m. You're carrying a fucking. You're bombed. You're wearing a suit. You just piss.
Is the whole law changed? Like, it used to be you can't have an open container on the street.
I mean, when you talk about defund the police,
Right.
and the dangers of what they want to crack down on, can you imagine them cracking down on a Budweiser?
Not after all this shit.
No
Not
way.
after this
That's
year.
the lightest of their concerns. So I mean, before we got legalized last year, you walk right up to them with a joint and a beer, like, which way is whatever, and they would just be like, "You're taking a chance, dude. It's that way."
Wow.
They wouldn't care.
They didn't care.
Mm-mm.